Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chez Lez Fleur podcast. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. And if you are a returning visitor, we are glad to have you back. We look at all the exciting things that women in business are doing, small businesses doing, small business retail, entrepreneurship, all those great avenues that people have. And if you enjoy hearing about the tenacity of business owners, if you enjoy hearing about the challenges and the thrills, that's great. If you have a business, that's great. Or if you just plain like hearing about what entrepreneurs are doing, we are glad to have you with us. My guest today is Carlotta James, and she is part of a group, three sisters, and they are landscapers extraordinaire. And Carlotta, I am so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, Janet. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, good, good. Thank you. Carlotta, you have a landscaping business and called Three Sisters, and you have a little bit of a different philosophy about how you landscape and what you do. So could you share that with us, please?
Sure. I think first and foremost, we like to work with the natural environment. And rather than imposing our views and ways and even philosophies on the natural environment, we really like to step back and see what's already there, to see what sort of plants and trees and shrubs are there and how we can work with those plant communities and enhance them and make them better. But, I have to step back a little. Our philosophy really centers on supporting pollinators. Pollinators have been in decline for the past 2 decades all around the world. And when we found out about the numbers going down, we decided to do something about it. And so for us, Three Sisters really means inviting pollinators and wildlife back into our urban settings, back into our properties, and creating these beautiful gardens that are sustainable, that are eco-friendly, and that are beautiful, but that they also have some intention behind them in supporting wildlife and biodiversity and pollinators. And so it's been an incredible journey where next year, 2024, that'll be our 8th year in business. And of course, like all things in life, and especially when it centers on nature, there's so much to learn. And so we're students of life, students of our environment. And so it's been a wild ride. But I'm also so honored to have this opportunity to create these wild spaces for homeowners and for schools and for businesses. So that really is our philosophy, to bring back pollinators.
Yeah, and it is, I mean, we're seeing more and more being written about it, and even the things that will affect that, like large swatches of land that's been burned, so there's nowhere to land, or on the migration, and I think every year we see more, we're being educated better about the importance of it, and what to do with your leaves at the end of a season, and all those things. And I know that another thing that you didn't mention it, but it's also another really cool thing that's happening is deep pave projects. And you have been part of a really several beautiful deep pave projects. And
Yeah, and it's true. I mean, I feel like when we first started this and we had these conversations, people really didn't know what pollinators were, or they didn't care, or they just wanted to go back to regular gardening, which was basically mowing your lawn. And now, fast forward, like you said, Janet, there's so much education and awareness and excitement to bring these insects and pollinators back into our lives. And, projects like Deep Pave Canada, Deep Pave Peterborough, are having so many positive impacts. One of the largest deep pave projects was here in Peterborough, and Three Sisters got to be a part of that. And if folks in Peterborough are interested in checking out the deep pave site, it's behind No Frills on Water Street. And that project involved so many businesses and community groups and the city of Peterborough, as well as Greenup, who led the project. And three sisters got to be part of the conversation as well as the design of the garden. And then, of course, the installation of the garden itself. And that was a huge community process as well. And I should mention, many of us did it voluntarily because we care so much about, transforming these urban spaces into something of beauty and something for the ecosystem. And so depave really means taking out the pavement and putting in soil, putting in mulch, and putting in native plants as much as possible. And so at this point, these spaces are pretty wild, which is what we wanted. But there's still opportunities to learn. They're learning laboratories, essentially, for students, for community members, for families to walk by and see what these spaces what these spaces mean. And so to be a part of that also builds community. And so we hope to see more depave projects, of course, and pollinator pathways. But I absolutely love it. When anybody asks me to be involved in a depave or in a pollinator garden initiative, I will always say yes. It brings me so much joy to see something that was grass or was pavement, and then suddenly, it's feeding our ecosystems and it's feeding us as well as human beings. So it's a really amazing feeling.
Yeah. And it's also, like you say, you start with a chunk of asphalt, and then at the end you have something beautiful. So you can see the process of your work almost immediately, which has got to be very gratifying.
Yeah, and you feel strong. I mean, it's hard ripping out pavement. It's not an easy process, but by the end of it, you're stronger and you want to keep doing it again and again. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. How did you get into landscaping?
My background is not landscaping at all. I have a degree in international relations and Chinese politics. And so when I lived in Toronto, I moved here from Toronto. My world was really internet security, actually. I worked with human rights groups and people who live in censored regions of the world to help them access the internet in a safe way. And so the company I worked for did a lot of research and as well as software design, app design, so that internet users, could be anonymous and access the internet safely. So that's really my background, is more of the global internet security world. But then when I moved to Peterborough, it was hard to continue that work because these think tanks and research institutes are mostly based in Ottawa and Toronto. And so I had to recreate myself because the commute from Peterborough to Toronto was really wearing me down. And it was a sad day when I had to talk to my boss and, essentially quit my career. But then in that time, I had gotten involved with some community members through something called Peterborough Dialogues. And this was in 2015. And we talked about how can we engage, the community of Peterborough in a really deep way, and what sort of initiatives can we create in order to transform our city. And so through those dialogues, we came up with the group Peterborough Pollinators. And right from the start, we were very action-based and we wanted to educate and we wanted to create gardens. And so we did. We applied for funding through the participatory budgeting process, which was a city-led funding initiative. And they gave each ward $20,000 to do something. And each one of us applied for $20,000 and we won. It was a competitive process. And so with those funds, we created pollinator gardens in every single ward. And it took us 2 years to do that, through conversations and planning and garden designs. And while all that was happening with the Peterborough pollinators, I had many people come up to me and say, can you do this for me in my front yard? Can you do this for me in my backyard? And we really didn't have the capacity as a volunteer group. We were all volunteers. And so some members of Peterborough Pollinators thought, well, here's a business idea. Why don't we start a landscaping business and do the same thing that we're doing through Peterborough Pollinators for homeowners? And so Three Sisters was born in 2016, and we launched early 2017, and we've been going full steam ahead since then. There was a need and we saw an opportunity and we went for it. And that's what I was saying earlier with, pollinator gardens. Those conversations weren't happening at that time. And now everyone knows about it and everyone wants to do something about it. So it's been a huge shift. And in fact, when we started Three Sisters, there weren't any eco landscaping businesses. Most landscaping businesses were traditional. They focused maybe on annuals or on non-native plants. And what we were doing was really unique. And now in 2023, there are dozens of eco landscaping businesses, and a lot of them are my friends. So it's so great to have this really strong network of eco landscaping businesses who all support each other, and we can share stories and experiences and, how we can continue to educate ourselves and get more training and workshops. So it's a really healthy community. And, for your listeners out there who maybe want to come up with a new business idea, that's a business idea. Start a landscaping business, especially if it's one that focuses on native plants, and, cultivating that environment for supporting biodiversity. We need it. We have over 80,000 people that live in Peterborough. Not everyone has a home, but there are many homes that could support pollinator-friendly spaces. Just give me one sec. My cat is scratching, so I'm just going to let him inside.
Okay.
Okay, he's on a leash because we have a bylaw in Peterborough that you can't allow your cat to be free anymore. So he was on a leash outside and probably cold in the snow, so I've let him in.
Excellent. So as I watch you run to the door, I understand that you're a long distance runner and you run a lot. So I know that during one of your runs, you had a bit of an epiphany. Do you want to share that with us?
Well, running, first of all, keeps me strong, and I need to have a strong body for the work that I do. It's, as you know, Janet, they're long days. We're outside working in all the elements, sometimes up to 10-hour days. We're lifting very heavy rocks, mulch, compost, plants. So running really benefits my work. But I started running when I was a young kid, and it really helped me to stay grounded and focused. And it's also a way for me to discover new places, because all you need are your running shoes, and you go off into nature or to a forest, and that's how you see things. And it was through one of these runs in 2016, when we had a severe drought in Ontario, and I hardly noticed any monarch butterflies that summer. And while I was running, there was a monarch butterfly fluttering beside me. And then from that moment, I became sort of obsessed in wanting to know what their journey was like. When they left Peterborough in the fall, as all monarchs do, to fly to Mexico, I wanted to understand what their migration felt like, what it looked like. I wanted to know if they had enough flowers along the way, if they had water sources. And so I had this dream in my head, and I was percolating, and I was getting so excited thinking, okay, I'm a runner. What if I can run to Mexico? What if I can gather a group of people to run for monarch conservation? What if we can, meet people along the way and connect communities for something really positive? And so it took 2 years of dreaming and planning and coming up with the idea and finding the right team to do this with. And then finally in 2019, we were ready. We'd raised enough funds. We found an RV. We had created the route, which you know, it was over 4,000 kilometers. So you can imagine what that would look like, because those 4,000 kilometers had to be done by foot by a runner. So we needed all the details possible. We didn't want to send a runner, you know, running into a lake or to a prison or something,
Right.
which we did find sometimes, and we had to do a U-turn. And so during that time, we left during the monarch migration, and we arrived when monarch butterflies arrived in Mexico. That project is called the Monarch Ultra, and it was a life-changing thing for me. I got to meet some really incredible people, and I was very humbled along the way in meeting people who've devoted their life to protecting monarch butterflies and who've devoted their life to being activists for the monarch butterfly cause, but also to see the grit and the resilience of the runners. I mean, each runner ran either 50 or 100 kilometers. That is such a long distance. The reason why I decided to have that distance for each runner was also because monarch butterflies are ultra flyers. In one day, they can fly up to 100 kilometers. So I didn't want to invite, you know, short distance runners that could do 5 or 10K, because that's not what monarchs do. And I was trying to mimic the migration as much as possible. So when we left on September 19th in 2019, we had about 46 ultra runners that had signed up. We did not have enough runners, even though, you know, we worked really hard, but it was also a new project, and you have to convince people to sign up and to be a part of it. And so for the legs that we didn't have any runners, I would jump in and run that 50K. Or the race director, Clay Williams, who's also an ultra runner, he would jump in and run a 50K. And we did this continuously for 7 weeks. And after 7 weeks, we finally reached the sanctuary in Mexico, and we had done it. We had reached the end of our journey. And after that, we decided to continue to do this good work and to host running events and community events. And so we just did. We hosted Peterborough's first Monarch Butterfly Festival in October, and it was such a beautiful event. We had dancers and singers and vendors, and in the morning of the festival, we also had a monarch run. And so runners dressed up in butterfly costumes, and we raised funds for the sanctuary as well, which is so important to us. I just found out from our colleagues in Mexico that the money we raised $5,000. With that money, they're able to plant 1,088 new trees.
Wow.
That's huge.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So that's like the short version of running for butterflies, but it also goes back to a love of flowers and plants and gardens and being outdoors.
Well, and you know, it's not, knowing you as long as I have, it wasn't surprising for me to see that, you know, that the two of those come together so well, because it just, of course, you know, you just listen to it and you go, of course,
Aw,
that's what the next step is. Of course.
thank you. Yeah, it's been really exciting, and I hope to galvanize, you know, community members in Peterborough to keep getting healthy and doing something for the environment. Because as you know, without the environment, we have nothing. And with climate change a part of all of our reality, we need to be awakened and engaged and to do as much as possible for.
As much as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And like you, Janet, I mean, look at how many beautiful gardens you have. And I've had the privilege of, you know, planting some of those gardens, but it's so cool to see the transformation on your property as well. And, you know, you're the envy of your neighbors now. And that's what
Well,
you want to do.
well, that's thanks to you. Although
Well,
I am fond of my pear trees, even though they're older, I am, when they're blooming, it is so beautiful.
yeah, and bees go crazy for those
They do.
flower blossoms. Yeah. I mean, they're drunk with the flower blooms.
Yes. No, it's very it's very lovely. I'm very fortunate. And a lot of that is because of your hard work. So thank you for that. We like to end our podcast with a few rapid fire questions. So if you're good with that,
Sounds good. I'm ready for you.
Okay, good. Okay. Apple or orange?
It depends on the season. Orange in the summer, apple in the winter.
Rap or hip hop?
Neither. I like blues, reggae, soul, funk.
Cotton or wool?
Again, the season, cotton in the summer, wool in the winter.
Bicycle or skateboard?
Always a bicycle.
Perennial or shrub?
Oh, perennial.
Yeah.
What's your favorite perennial?
Oh, there's so many of them. One of the things I love in my yard is the phlox and poppy combination because they bloom at about the same time, and that color contrast of the purple and the orange
Stunning.
it is stunning. Yeah, I like that.
Do you know the flower monkshood? It's a
Yes.
fall. Oh, that's my favorite is monkshood. There's
Yeah.
just something so elegant about that plant.
Yes. Very true. Very true. Carlotta, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. You're busy and you've got a lot on the go, and you've got fabulous energy, and you're always right on the starting line for anything that helps our pollinators, helps our community, and helps our gardens. And you really are a great asset to our community. And I really, I know I speak for others as well, that we really appreciate everything that you work at and work for. And I appreciate you taking time today to be with us and to tell your story. If you are watching us for the first time, welcome. If you are returning, we're glad to have you back. We've been talking to Carlotta James, and she's a gardener extraordinaire, and we loved hearing your story. Next week, our guest is Pam Van Ness, and she does emotional coaching. So she's got a great story as well. If you enjoy hearing the tenacity of entrepreneurs and listening to people's business grow and flourish and take root, then we welcome you to Chez Lez Fleur podcast. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you.